My older brother sent the message at 7:14 on a Friday night. I know the exact time because I had just gotten home from a 12-hour shift, still in my scrubs, standing in my kitchen eating cold leftover pastas straight from the container. My phone buzzed on the counter. I picked it up without thinking. It was the family group chat. The one my mom had named Family First Hind 3 years ago when she got a new phone and decided we all needed to be more connected. My brother had typed, "Hey everyone, just a heads up, Wren's not invited to the cookout this Sunday. Paige doesn't feel comfortable around her. You know how things have been. We just want good vibes only." I read it twice. Then my mom responded with a heart emoji. My dad sent a thumbs up. My aunt wrote, "Totally understand, family comes first." I set my fork down. I looked at the container of pasta. I looked back at my phone. And then I put the phone face down on the counter, finished eating, washed my dish, and went to bed. I didn't type a single word. Let me back up. My name is Wren. I'm 31 years old. I'm a hospitalist physician at a mid-sized hospital in Atlanta. I finished my residency at 28, joined the practice at 29, and became the youngest attending on the internal medicine floor by 30. I own a 2-bedroom condo in Buckhead. I have a 401k that would make most people my age cry. I drive a sensible car, and I make my own coffee every morning. Nobody in my family knows any of this, not because I lied, because they never asked. My older brother Cole is 35. He's the one my parents talk about at church, at dinner, at every holiday gathering since the day he was born. Cole got a football scholarship. Cole is so handsome. Cole married a beautiful girl. Cole, Cole, Cole. Even when Cole dropped out after his sophomore year, even when his first business failed, even when he borrowed money from my parents and never paid it back, Cole was still the golden child, the one with potential, the one who just needed a little more time. His wife Paige came into the picture about 4 years ago. She's the kind of person who smiles at you while she's deciding what she thinks of you. She never liked me. I could feel it from the first Thanksgiving she attended. The way she'd redirect conversations whenever I was speaking. The way she'd laugh a little too loud at something Cole said right when I was mid-sentence. I tried for a long time. I brought hostess gifts. I asked about her work. I made her coffee the way she liked it. None of it mattered. Eventually, I just stopped going to things when I knew they'd be there. I told myself it was because of my schedule, which wasn't entirely a lie. Hospital rotations are brutal. I work weekends, holidays, odd hours. It gave me an easy excuse. But the truth is, every time I left one of those family gatherings, I drove home feeling like I was 14 again. Like I was the weird, quiet one who read too much and didn't play sports and couldn't figure out how to be what everyone wanted. I had been the weird, quiet one. I'd also been studying while Cole was at parties, but nobody tracks that part. The Sunday of the cookout came and went. I worked a double shift, intubated a 63-year-old man with pneumonia, discharged a woman who'd been with us for 11 days, ate a granola bar in the break room at 2 in the afternoon. Did not think about burgers and lawn chairs and my family deciding I was bad for the vibes. I thought about it a little. On Monday, my mom called. "Did you see Cole's message?" she asked, like she was checking in on a scheduling conflict. "I did," I said. "Paige has been going through a hard time," she said. "You know how sensitive she is." "I know. It was just easier this way." "I understand," I said. There was a pause. I think she expected me to argue or cry or ask what I'd done wrong. I'd done that before. Years ago, when I was still hoping that if I just explained myself clearly enough, someone would hear me. "Okay," she said, uncertain. "Well, we missed you." "I had a shift," I said. Which was true. We hung up. I went back to my charts. 3 weeks later, I was in my office on a Tuesday afternoon reviewing discharge summaries when my assistant knocked on the door. "Dr. Calloway, there are 2 people at the front asking to speak with the department head. They don't have an appointment." My official title is attending physician, but I also serve as the interim department director for internal medicine while our permanent director is on medical leave. It's a temporary administrative role, but it means my name is on the door placard at the end of the hall. I told her send them in. I heard them before I saw them. Paige's voice carries. She was saying something about how she'd tried to call ahead but couldn't find the right number. And yes, she understood there was a process, but this was important. And she stopped when she walked through the door and saw me sitting behind the desk. The color left her face so completely I almost reached for my stethoscope on reflex. Cole was right behind her. He looked at the nameplate on my desk. He looked at me. He looked at the diplomas on the wall. He looked back at me. I folded my hands on the desk. Hi, I said. Can I help you? Let me tell you what they wanted. Paige had been running a small wellness business, supplements coaching, the kind of thing that lives on Instagram and promises transformation in 30 days. She had signed a lease on a commercial space to expand, hired 2 employees, ordered inventory. The business had been struggling for months, but she'd hidden that from Cole. The lease was now 3 months behind. The suppliers were calling. She had maxed out 2 credit cards in the company's name and one in Cole's. They had come to the hospital, specifically because Paige had done some research and found out that hospitals sometimes have community investment programs, grants or low interest loans for local held adjacent small businesses. She had put together a pitch. She wanted to propose that her wellness brand partner with the hospital's outpatient health initiative. She had found the name of the interim department director online. She did not know that name was mine. I let her finish the pitch. It took about 9 minutes. She had a folder, printed slides. She was poised and professional, and she used words like synergy and community alignment and holistic outcomes. When she was done, I looked at her for a moment. I'm not the right contact for this, I said. Our community investment decisions go through the hospital's foundation board. I can give you that contact information if you'd like. She nodded, relieved, like the conversation was over. But I want to be honest with you, I said. The program you're describing is typically for non-profit organizations or medically affiliated practices. A private supplement company would likely not qualify. I'd recommend speaking with a small business advisor before you invest more time in this direction. The relief on her face flickered. Cole hadn't said a word since he walked in. He was standing slightly behind Paige, and his expression was doing something complicated. Embarrassment, I think, mixed with something that might have been recognition. Wren, he said. His voice came out smaller than I expected. It's Dr. Calloway in this office, I said. Not unkindly, just clearly. He nodded, and for a second, just a second, he looked like the boy who used to knock on my bedroom door when he had nightmares when we were little. Before the football scholarship, before Paige, before all of it, I handed Paige the foundation board's contact card and told her my assistant would walk them out. They left. I sat very still for about 30 seconds. Then I picked up my phone and called my best friend who has known me since college, and I said, "You are not going to believe what just happened." My assistant, who had apparently overheard more than I realized, found me in the break room 20 minutes later. "Were those people your family?" she asked. "My brother and his wife." She was quiet for a moment. "Do they know what you do?" "No," I said. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite name. Then she said, "Well, now they do," and refilled her coffee and left. I did not call Cole that night. I didn't feel the need to perform anything. No speech, no confrontation, no drawn-out explanation of how their behavior had affected me. I had given that speech before, in various forms, over many years, and it had never changed anything. I just went home, made dinner, and called my mom. Not to tell her what happened, just to ask how she was doing. We talked for 20 minutes about her garden and a show she was watching. Normal things. I didn't mention Cole and Paige. I found out what was really going on about a week later when Cole called me himself. His voice was different, quieter. He asked if I had a minute. I said yes. He told me that Paige's business was in serious trouble. Not just behind on the lease, the supplier was threatening a lawsuit over unpaid invoices. The credit card debt was significant. They had been trying to figure out a way out for months, and Paige had convinced him that the hospital partnership was their best shot. "I didn't know you worked there," he said. "I didn't know you were I knew you were in medicine, but I didn't." He stopped. You never asked, I said. Silence. No, he said. I didn't. I want to tell you that I felt a great wave of satisfaction in that moment. The triumphant feeling of someone finally seeing what they should have seen all along. But honestly, I mostly just felt tired. The specific tiredness of someone who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and has gotten so used to the weight that they don't notice it anymore until they put it down. Cole, I said, I can't help you get the hospital funding. That's not how it works, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to try. But if you want, I can give you the number for the Small Business Development Center through Georgia State. They do free consultations. They can actually help you figure out your options. He was quiet for a moment. That's it? That's it? You're not. He stopped again. You're not going to say anything? About the cookout? About all of it? I thought about it. I really did. Not right now, I said. Right now, you have a financial problem that needs solving. Let's deal with that first. Here's what happened after. Cole and Paige met with the Small Business Development Center. The advisor there helped them figure out that the commercial space lease had an exit clause they hadn't known about, which saved them from a longer financial liability. They were still left with significant credit card debt, but they consolidated it and put together a real repayment plan. Page wound down the brick and mortar expansion and moved the business back online, which was honestly where it had been strongest anyway. It was painful for her, I'm sure, but it was survivable. I know all this because started calling me more. Not constantly, not in the way you do when you're best friends, because we weren't that and we probably never would be. But he'd call on Sundays sometimes, ask how my week was. He'd actually listen to the answer. The first time he said that sounds exhausting. Are you okay? About a heart patient case I'd mentioned? I had to sit with the phone against my ear for a second because I couldn't remember the last time he'd asked me that. My mom called me about 2 months after the office visit and said, in a carefully neutral voice, that Paige had mentioned running into me at the hospital. I said. She said you were very professional. Good. Another pause. Wren, why didn't you ever tell us? About your position. About everything. I thought about the group chat. The heart emoji. The thumbs up. You didn't ask, I said. And I learned a long time ago not to offer things that weren't being received. She was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, she said. Her voice cracked slightly on the second word. I believed her. I also knew that sorry doesn't rewrite 10 years. It doesn't undo the 100 small moments of being looked over, talked past, laughed off. It doesn't give back the Thanksgivings I spent at the hospital on purpose because it was easier than feeling invisible at my own family's table. I know, Mom, I said. I know. I want to be clear about something because I think these stories sometimes get told as if there's a clean ending, a moment where the family finally understands and everything resets and you all hug and it's over. That's not how it went. Paige and I are not friends. I don't think we ever will be. There's too much history, and she's not the kind of person who apologizes directly for things. I accept that. I don't need her apology. What I needed, for a long time, was to stop waiting for it. My mom is trying, in the slow, imperfect way of a person who is realizing late in life that they made mistakes they can't fully undo. I'm letting her try, not because everything is forgiven, but because I have watched enough patients and their families to know that time is genuinely limited, and I don't want to spend mine maintaining a wall that serves no one. My dad hasn't said much. He's not really a words person. But he drove 2 hours to Atlanta last month for no particular reason, showed up at my condo with a bag of tools, and spent the afternoon fixing 3 things in my apartment that I'd mentioned offhandedly were broken. He didn't bring up any of it. Neither did I. We ordered pizza. We watched a game. When he left, he hugged me longer than usual and said, I'm proud of you, kiddo. I cried in the elevator going back up to my floor. Cole is. Cole is a work in progress. So am I. We're finding our way to something that might eventually look like the relationship we should have had all along. It's slow. It's not always comfortable. Last month, he asked me what I actually did on a typical workday, and I talked for 20 minutes and he didn't interrupt once. That felt like a lot coming from him. Here is what I want to say to anyone who sees themselves in this story. You do not owe people an explanation of your worth. You do not have to prove yourself to the people who were supposed to believe in you from the beginning. You do not have to walk through the front door of your own life announcing what you've built, hoping someone will finally notice. Build it anyway, quietly, honestly, with your whole self, because eventually people see it, not always the way you imagined, not always in the moment that feels satisfying, but they see it. And when my brother stood in my office, looking at the name on my door, looking at the diplomas on my wall, looking at me behind that desk, the version of me that had been invisible to him for 30 years, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I wasn't thinking about the cookout or the group chat or any of it. I was thinking about my patient in room 4 who needed to be discharged before noon. And that, honestly, is the best part of the whole story. I had already moved on. They were the ones still catching up. I've thought a lot about what actually caused all of this. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly, the way you think about things when you're driving home after a long shift and the radio is off and your brain finally has room to move. The easy answer is that Paige was unkind and Cole was weak and my parents were blind. That's all true, but it's not the whole picture. What I keep coming back to is this: the people who dismissed me were never paying attention to begin with, and the people who aren't paying attention don't get to benefit from what you've quietly built. Not because you're punishing them, just because that's how it works. You can't harvest something you never tended. Cole never asked what I did, never asked how residency was going, never asked what it actually meant to become a physician, never asked if I was tired or scared or proud. For years, I told myself it didn't matter, but it did matter. And the fact that it mattered quietly, that I never made a scene about it, never demanded acknowledgement, that was its own kind of choice. I chose to keep going anyway. I chose to build something real even when no one was watching. And there's something in that choice made over and over again in small, unglamorous moments that compounds over time into a life. That's not magic. That's just what sustained effort looks like from the inside. The thing about integrity, about doing the work because the work matters and not because someone is clapping, is that it builds a kind of internal structure that other people's opinions genuinely cannot touch. When Paige walked into my office with her printed slides and her business pitch, I wasn't sitting there thinking about the cookout. I was doing my job. My actual job. The one I'd spent a decade earning. Her opinion of me had never been able to reach that. It just didn't have the access. That's what I want anyone to take from this, not the satisfaction of the moment, though I won't pretend that moment wasn't something, but the longer truth underneath it. The years of quiet, unglamorous, unsexy discipline that made that moment possible. The Saturday mornings studying when Cole was at parties. The residency nights when I was so tired I ate standing up in a hospital break room. The small daily decisions to keep going when keeping going felt like shouting into a room where nobody turned around. None of that was for them. It was never for them. It was for me. For the patients in my care. For the person I wanted to be when no one was looking. And I think that's the difference between people who build something lasting and people who spend their lives waiting for someone else to hand them their worth. Cole and Paige were looking for shortcuts. A partnership, a loan, someone else's platform to stand on. I had spent a decade learning that there are no shortcuts worth taking, only foundations worth building. The cookout, the group chat, the thumbs up from my parents, all of it was painful. I won't rewrite that. But pain, when you let it move through you instead of defining you, has a way of clarifying what actually matters. What matters, I know now, is that I show up. To the work, to the people who need me, to the version of myself that never stopped even when it wasn't recognized. Everything else, including that moment in my office, was just the natural result of that.